Hi, hello once again. This is Jonathan Miller with Hometown Historian. We are here today at Bindnagles Evangelical Lutheran Church. This building is actually on the National Registry of Historic Places and Buildings. This was built in 1803. The congregation actually goes back into like the 1730s, 1740s. They had a Reverend Stover that actually went around. This area, once again, is a very big area, like German immigrants, Swiss immigrants, and it's out on called Gravel Hill Road. I believe it's North Londonderry Township. It's not actually that far away from my hometown of Steelestown, but it's a really, really beautiful area. And I didn't even realize there's a cemetery here in the back, which would be the oldest cemetery. And then when you go up this way, which we will do, there's a cemetery up there on the hill to a continuation. But this was, it was 1753, a Hans Bindnagle donated 5 acres of land to the church congregation, and they built a log cabin church on the property, which served them till 1803 when this church was built. And they actually went around to the parishioners, the local residents, and just anybody that wanted to see a place like this built for the community. And there was over 400 people that wound out giving, and they did it in like 3 installments. And they actually had only 12 people, just to show the character of the people. There was like 12 people that didn't fulfill their payments, but it was, back then I think it accounted for building this place was about $2,500 almost. And it's a very pretty church in there. And they actually have an old pewter set that they do like their I don't know what you call sacraments, but it's like they do once a month that they have. Is from like 1745, which is really, really unique. They actually had a whole thing on historic places and whatnot, like for German culture. And they actually had a lock from the church that was in that in Philadelphia. But there it is, Bindnagle Lutheran Church, circa 1803, and it's been placed on the National Registry of Historic Places. Really is a beautiful church, and just to think this is 1803, it's over 200 years old, almost 220 years old now. I'd actually like to go to a service here at some point just to see the inside of the church. There's a number of these old churches I would love to just go and see. So we're going to go around the back here, and we're going to check out the old original cemetery, and then we will go over to the much larger cemetery. But yeah, this is a church that a lot of people donated to, really appreciate. It's got a very unique, I guess, the way they did the bricks and stuff like that, but it's 2 stories, which is another thing that was sort of unique. Really not sure if it's, because you actually see the stairs going up there in the window. And so I assume they have like a balcony that people can go up in that. Whatever the different architectural names and stuff like that. But it's just, I've never actually come here right directly up against the church, but it's really beautiful, beautiful building. But yeah, one thing I wanted to let you guys know as well. I've been trying to get content up every single day, and I haven't been able. It's probably going to be a little bit of an issue over the next week or so, because I'm not really supposed to be on my feet a ton, because I had some issues with my foot getting reinfected. And now this is from like 2 weeks ago, but I just had issues with my leg getting injured and having a lot of pain. And the doctor said that he wants me to stay off it for the most part. Something like this I can do, but I still got to be pretty careful of how much I do, because if I push it too far, I can wind up injuring myself. Don't want to do this and want to continue doing this. I also wanted to mention, I had talked about in the first vlog that one of the things I mentioned I didn't want to do yet was Patreon, which is where people can donate to basically thank you for putting out content and stuff like that to sort of support your channel, and it enables you to be able to go out and do this. I just sort of don't feel the time's appropriate yet, and so that's sort of the reason behind it, because I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding on that. It's not that I don't appreciate, but I want to make sure that I can actually do this full time and be able to put out content every single day, build up that backlog of videos, put out good content, and really make this channel something that we can all be proud of and really all enjoy. So that's the reasoning behind it. I also want to just take my time with a lot of this stuff and not overwhelm myself, because the channel it's growing by leaps and bounds. I think today on Saturday there were like 220 some odd subscribers, which is pretty impressive to grow that quickly, and that's all credit to you guys. So once again, thank you. So we're going to go through the cemetery here. This is the old original cemetery. I believe, if I didn't mention earlier in the video, the very first burial that they have recorded here at the cemetery, which I would assume is in this one because this is the old original, is 1774. So just before the beginning of the Revolutionary War. So we're going to check some of these stones. There's a couple here that are pretty impressive. And another weird note, the original Pastor Stover, who had basically gone around sort of like almost like a country doctor, but a country pastor, he had served here till 1779. And there's another really cool Lutheran church that I would like to go to in Cleona. It's just north of Cleona, called Hill Church Lutheran Church. And there's actually a pretty renowned family. There's like over 140 of them. They're the Heilman family. And I believe there's a Bindnagle. I have to look exactly where it is, but it's located in Annville region, or Palmyra region. But there's over 140 of them that are buried there. And he was doing one of the services, is catechisms or something like that. He actually died in the middle of that, doing those rites. And it was just really unique thing. But he had served till 1779, and I think he had started in the 1730s, if I read things correctly. But that's pretty impressive length of service, and he had really made quite an impact on the area. So, but that's another unique story. There's a lot of different things talking about. You can look it up on the internet, the different sort of more intricate details about the members and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to see if we can find that 1774 stone. I don't know if we will or not, because some of these, the older they get, the harder they are. These are folks that had died in 1905. Elizabeth, looks like Ellinger. She was the wife of Michael Horse, and that's Michael Horse, and he died in 1901. Some of these, as you go in more and more of these cemeteries, you sort of, cemeteries the stones went through a lot of different styles, and you sort of get used to, okay, this is where this style is from, and you sort of get to know. You can see him, he said this is Revolutionary War period, because the Revolutionary War period had a lot of these stones that have these things here, a sort of crown on the top of it, and then you'll also see like the German script, because a lot of the people in this area that time period were German immigrants, Swiss immigrants. This looks like a Catherine Miller. She was born 1786 and died 1844. Yeah, so here's one of these things that they're so, I think maybe over time, if they got cleaning or something like that, you could read them a little more. Plus you have the German script. Makes it very, very hard to, I know, but this looks like a Maria House, maybe, Haus, potentially, I'm not really sure. That one was 1833. But you can go too, it's cool, on like grave.com. I think it's grave.com, but it's something along those lines, that they'll actually have the listings in a lot of these cemeteries, and you can see who's all buried there, because a lot of times you can't tell. And then sometimes as well, like you see the open areas. I know Cliff talks about this in his videos a lot. A lot of these open areas, there are people buried there. It's not like you just have open areas. Like these were stones that either fell over, or like, this is a Lutheran cemetery, and it's been a Lutheran cemetery from the beginning, but Moravian cemeteries especially, they believe, one of their beliefs is that everybody is equal in death. So whether you're rich, poor, whatever, they all had the same flat stone, And because of those flat stones, unfortunately, a lot of them didn't survive over time. And there was a couple, like the Bethel Moravian over in Lickdale and in that Monroe Valley. Those were both Moravian cemeteries. And I know the Monroe Valley one was the Moravian mission for the Monroe Valley. And at that time, it wasn't known as Monroe Valley, but yeah, it's just, there's something about these old cemeteries. They just have a look. And this is sort of neat. Here you have this stone here. You can still see some writing here. Like right here, maybe that's originally how the stone, maybe it was more squared off, but that's still pretty neat. I mean, obviously the cement was added a lot later on these things, and that's a lot of these old cemeteries, the stones eventually, fell over. And you also had, unfortunately, with a lot of these old cemeteries, a bunch of punks run around, they break the stones over because somehow they find that humorous. And it's really, that kind of stuff really makes me angry. Like, here's a stone that's broken, and that may have broken naturally. Chances are it probably didn't, and some jerk came by here and did that, which, once again, I don't know. Here's one that was broken at some point and they repaired it, but I don't understand the thought process behind people doing that kind of stuff. It's just awful. But and here's a section that looks like most of them are born in early 1800s, passed away 1860s or so. 1900, 1902 on this one. This one is a Widener, a Sarah Widener. She was the wife of Joseph Early. It's cool too, like you'll find like the sections of these. There was a Hemperly section up there where we first started, and then you'll see, now here you'll see some of the Earlys. And then it'll be cool too, because you'll see like there's one that they took out the E in Early, because over time sometimes they'll change the spelling of the names. Cliff and I saw it over at the Charles Baber Cemetery with several different families where they changed it'd be more of the old country, like say the German spelling or closer. Here's a cool last name. Mary Wolfensberger. That's pretty neat. That's definitely German. She was born, it looks like 1847, died in 1900. But you definitely, I don't know, the things that you see in a lot of these places is just very unique, and it's the history. And we reiterate over and over, whether it's Cliff or I, every single one of these people had a story you could fill books with. This is a John Early, and then that's his wife. I can't really, it starts with an M, but I think it's a very unique spelling. But here's another one, Emma A. Early. Looks a little older. Looks like she was young. Usually they have like that as the parents and then the child. Here's one as infant daughter. Children. It says it's children of the, I guess it's, look almost like Ezra, and I believe it'd be Catherine Early. She's, yeah, and that's a lot of these really small stones. They're usually for children. It's just, a lot of times you'll see too, like you'll see a bunch of them all at once, and it's like an influenza or some, whatever the disease that went through at that time, whether it be smallpox or whatever, wound out, and you'll see them in succession within like a couple months of each other a lot of times. It's just sad. Thomas Getz, but so Christina Early. I believe the Quittapah Hill, or that's the Swatera, I believe, down there, like the little Swatera. So if we can get a picture of that. Here's Army of the Republic, so this would have been Civil War. I'm having trouble making out the name there. Looks almost with a Rem. Might be Remington, or I don't think it's that, but He was the son of, it looks like, Joshua and Mary Early. Like 1840, and it looks like 1896 is when he passed away. Sometimes you can make it out. The more you do this, the more sometimes you're like, okay, I'm starting to be able to distinguish certain things and able to figure out what it is. I know this part of the Swati too is an area that a lot of people like to do kayaking. It's a pretty nice area. It's a little more laid back and slow moving area of the Swati, and it's deep enough that you can actually do that, because there's a lot of areas of the Swatis that you can't really, it's pretty shallow. But yeah, so this is just a really neat old cemetery. Started in 1774, right before the Revolution, and this one almost looks like Stewart, perhaps, or actually something else. It's a cool, like the S or whatever is almost like a squash or something like that. But that's definitely very German, the way these stones are laid out. I think here's a pretty unique stone. Yeah. Revolutionary War patriot Johannes Michael Malver, which eventually turned into Malfair, took oath of allegiance, Lancaster Company, PA, born 1729, died before December 26, 1807 in Dauphin County, marker placed by Norma Jean Wallace Hartman, Bethel Fife and Drum Chapter, and I have another name. Some of this, the way the spacing is, makes it a little difficult, but here's a Revolutionary War vet, and that apparently his name is Johannes Michael Malver, which was eventually changed into Malfair, but Malvir would have been the original German, how it was originally spelled. I want to make sure I don't miss. Oh wow, that's pretty neat. This memorial is dedicated to the founder of Palmyra, Dr. John Palm, July 25th, 1713 to April 25th, 1799. His wives, Christina Dorothy, 1747, she died. Catherine Salome died 1764, and Elizabeth Klein Williams died 1815. And it was presented by the Palmyra Rotary Club, 1976. So this is where John Palm is buried then. He's the founder of Palmyra. It's always neat. Like, I think Cliff just had a video in Paxton. He was doing a video on the Paxton Boys for the French and Indian War, but he also did a video on the cemetery there at the old Paxton Church. I believe that might have been a Lutheran Presbyterian, but a very old church. And the founder of Harrisburg was buried there, and that was sort of like a shock. And I guess one of the first 2 U.S. senators was also buried there. Here's another Revolutionary War vet. It's always neat to find things like that, because I want to go back to Pottsville to that cemetery, the Charles Baber Cemetery, because they said John Potts, who is the founder of Pottsville, is actually buried there, and there's supposed to be some other famous people that are buried there as well. It's just such a massive cemetery. And like I said, a lot of these stones, when they're really, really old, it's hard to read what they say, and sort of hard sometimes to be able to find those stones, because we had some other really neat stories that were told to us from back then that let's see if I can get a peek down here at the Swatera, because it's right down here over the ledge. Yeah, right down there it is. This is a really peaceful area. It's another one of these valleys that people settled in, and a lot of the German immigrants, they apparently they weren't very good farmers, or it's just not what their vocation was. So, they sort of shied away from getting land from William Penn, the because a lot of time it was made for that purpose, is to have people come in as farmers, and so they sort of stayed away from that, and they moved into some of these different valleys where they did other things and whatnot. But yeah, so we're gonna a lot of these stones, unfortunately, you really can't read. I mean, a lot of these are, like I said, they're 150 to maybe not quite 200 years old, but they're old enough that over that period of time that the stone just deteriorates and just sort of, sometimes every now and then some of these stones like this, these couple here just really handle the weathering of time quite well. But this is, a lot of this stuff is Revolutionary War or right after. There's another Revolutionary War vet. But it'd just be really neat to sort of find out what every one of these people's stories are and what they did, where they lived, because it's just, these little valleys where the settlements were, they have so much history, and sometimes it's preserved orally through families and whatnot, but a lot of times it's just lost to time. I believe this is a Civil War vet, if I'm correct. Should be Grand Army of the Republic. Yep, that's Civil War. We're gonna go back around through here because there's a pretty big monument over there that I'd like to check out. But I think we're gonna try to quick go over to that other cemetery. It's just up the hill a little bit and see what we can see. I just don't want this video to be too long. But yeah, it'd just be neat to find out what a lot of these people's history was and what they all did in life. And there's, like I said, there's a number of these areas where it's groupings of families, and sometimes with families like that, the history is, if you just had somebody early enough. I know like the Heilman family, there was a gentleman that was pretty early on that he started compiling the family history, because once you get past 100 years, it's very, very hard to know what the actual history was of those individuals and all that, and it's just, like I said before, it's sort of lost to time. Some of these are pretty neat. They have a little bit of like an artwork type thing on these stones, sort of lost to time. That almost looks like a David Lentz. But there's another Jacob Lenk, almost looks like. That's Revolutionary War vet. I believe Revolutionary War. Yes, I think 1759, and he died in 1845. Ooh, she had a bird fly right out of the birdhouse right in front of my face. Yeah. So I think we're gonna go over through here, and then we're gonna check out that big stone, and then we're gonna probably walk down to the other cemetery just to see what we can see. This is the old original. There's another one that's broke. A couple of these are broken. It's just a shame that people come in and do stuff like that. So it's always, you come in a place like this, you treat it with the ultimate respect. These are very special places. Just remembering our past. And as Cliff said in the last, in a weird way, this is also our future. It's like every single one of us at some point is going to pass away. And whether, like, I'm going to be cremated, so I tell my family to go take me out in the woods and dump me out there. But it's surreal. I mean, you don't want to say it's morbid, but just one of those things. that we have a mortality to ourselves and need to live our lives the fullest. And always, I hear a number of people always say, is like, it's make sure like you leave this world a better place than you found it. And it's good policy, good way to live your life, a good legacy. Is to make the world a better place, to live a life of love. And really like this here, it's got sort of like that starburst thing. It's the craftsmanship that went into making a lot of these stones. Like I don't understand how they do it, but you have an apprenticeship and you build up that skill over time, and you're able to do these things. Another Revolutionary War vet there. Like I said earlier, I didn't even know that this, because I'd never really come up this close to the cemetery before here. And there's one with roses on it. That's actually really, really pretty. But I never even knew a cemetery was back here. And this is just a beautiful old cemetery. It's always nice to see when they're really well maintained like this and taken care of. This is a beautiful church. Really impressed by it. Actually coming up to it, for the first time and checking it out. It's a really neat place, and there is some more research that you can do on it. Like I did a little bit, beyond, and there's only so much you can talk about it, but it's a really neat place. And these old churches, they provided so much for the community, and it really is. It's a place of renewment. It's a place that we know family and have so many memories. It's another one of those things that surrounds around hometown. So I'm gonna shut off for right now, and we're gonna go check out the other cemetery. Just see what we can see, and we'll go from there. All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you about town.